Some Week 5 games, and as we preview Week 5 games, Gerhard, there are several injuries going into this week. None bigger than the news we got out of Norman, Oklahoma. And from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, we're going to welcome in our guy, Holden Krusemark, who has hopefully catched his breath from a wild week. There's no way you caught your breath, bro. But the things that are going on in the sports world in Oklahoma right now, between the weekend, what's happening, of course, with Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy, and then figuring out that, of course, they don't have a quarterback right now. And Norman, I mean, how are you doing on this Thursday? There's not a lot going on.
Yeah, it's been kind of a whirlwind. I mean, I was at home on Tuesday trying to enjoy a nice day off. Had started a load of laundry, and then all of a sudden,
guy can't use laundry.
Mike Gundy's fired.
Yep.
Oh, okay. And then, as we're all scrambling to get everything on, all of a sudden, oh, by the way, John Mateer's having surgery on his hand. Okay. Cool. Thanks. Yep. Thanks, guys. Really picked a winner of a day here to do all this stuff. So
let's start with John Mateer, because I do want to revisit Gundy for sure. This was a situation that I think surprised a lot of folks, or maybe I just wasn't paying attention in the game, but it's not like he wasn't playing throughout the entire 4 quarters there against Auburn. Was there anything trickling out, Holden, in terms of like news of is there something possibility going on maybe after a practice or over the weekend? Did this just kind of get put out into the spotlight in the way that did?
Yeah, and OU's off this week. They've got a bye week. So, there was no inkling, no nothing. Mateer, they said he got hurt in the first quarter. He finished out the game-winning drive, as everybody knows. And then, he came in, did his post-game press conference with us. No brace, no nothing. Made his joke about how he's different than Johnny Manziel, and, everything's all fine and dandy. We're all laughing. They just beat Auburn. They're, cooking so far this season. And then out of the blue, hey, he's getting surgery on his hand. Yeah. Okay, where did that come from? Apparently, in the first quarter, some play, he broke his thumb, had thumb surgery the other day. He just tweeted out just a few, maybe like a couple hours ago, that everything went well. And one of the things that was kind of funny here in Oklahoma is a lot of the fans found out who the doctor was that was going to be performing the surgery, and they were hyping this doctor up, and it was quite the scene on Twitter. Just scrolling down, people photoshopping this doctor's face onto all these people and stuff like that. So it was kind of funny. There was even an OU fan living in Los Angeles that dropped off a care package for John and the doctor at Cedar Sinai, the hospital that he was getting the surgery at. So people are having some fun with it.
No
I
doubt.
guess you could say maybe it's a coping mechanism for the fact that Mateer's going to be out for a few weeks, and it really kind of puts a damper on what's been an exciting start to a turnaround season and everything.
And I feel like it's exciting on multiple fronts, because it wasn't just Mateer. It was the fact that Ben Arbuckle was coming down with his offense, and these two were a package deal coming together. And you've talked at length, and we've talked about it on this show, about just how much their chemistry and their symmetry is really aligned, not through just fall camp, but through these first few games. Now that it is Michael Hawkins Jr. coming in, he obviously has experience. He's played against SEC opponents, but do you expect Arbuckle and Hawkins to have the same dynamic? Have they built that enough in fall camp where they can seamlessly go over the next few weeks without Mateer and the offense still look relatively the same?
I don't think so. But I think that's what the bye week and this Kent State game will kind of help do, is kind of solidify some more chemistry between Michael Hawkins and the new play caller. Arbuckle actually was the play caller in the bowl game against Navy. He had already come over from Washington State at that point, and Hawkins played quarterback in that game. So they have a little bit of experience in that way. But, the entire off season, these first few weeks, has been geared towards Mateer and everything with that. So it's going to take a little bit. Luckily, the schedule broke out pretty nicely for them, and the timing of all this worked out pretty nicely for them. Just the fact that you have a bye week and then you have Kent State, and Hawkins did start against Texas last year, so he has the experience. He won't be completely overwhelmed, but also they played really poorly offensively in that game. So it'll be interesting. And, the Kent State game, hopefully you get enough things ironed out and, you start to feel a little bit better. One thing that'll be interesting is just the fact that they haven't been able to get the run game going at all this year. And, that really hasn't mattered too much because Mateer's just been able to dice everybody up through the air and, also kind of do it on the ground himself. So Hawkins is a great athlete. He's really good. He's really fast, great runner. Maybe not the best passer. He's not quite to Mateer levels on that. So it'll be interesting to see if, they could finally get that run game going to help him out. And I think they might use a little bit more quarterback run, kind of like what they did with Mateer in the Michigan game. But also Hawkins is so fast that you can get him out on the perimeter a little bit more, kind of hit the edges and everything like that.
Obviously, when you look at a month out, there's no game that sticks out more than the Red River. And just to think about wanting to see both teams' best. I mean, from a standpoint of us here, you just want to see both teams put the best of what they have in that program out on the field. And it seems as though, unless there's something I'm not reading, that John Mateer will not be on the field for that game. We don't really know yet still what Texas is. I mean, obviously they're playing well. They have one loss outside of SEC play, and there's a lot of football left to be played. But how much does that kind of just put a damper a little bit on just what that game is going to be? And I know that a rivalry is a rivalry, but when you don't have all your guys and you're not at, full fire, that's kind of a disappointing situation, of course.
Yeah, for sure. And especially considering just the fact that Texas has whooped OU 2 of the last 3 meetings, with the first year of Brent Venables, with Dylan Gabriel being out with a concussion and Davis Bevell being about the worst quarterback OU's ever started in a game in their history. So that was a damper. Then Dylan Gabriel comes back the next year. You have the great finish with the game-winning touchdown. And then the next year you have the whole Arnold getting benched and Hawkins starting. And, I think in 2 of the 3 years, Brent Venables his offense has scored 3 total points in 2 of those games. Yeah. Getting shut out his first year and then only putting up 3 on the board this past year. So that really, and I don't think anybody was expecting, I think going into the season, pretty much anybody was expecting OU to lose that game. But then by the way they've been playing this year, just the excitement that's been building up, just seeing how this team looks so much better, people were starting to believe, hey, we got a chance. Like, the way Texas has looked a little bit at times this year, you're like, OU could actually, win this game. It's not out of the possibility, sure. Beginning of the season, you're like, yeah, probably that's definitely one of the losses that they're going to, incur. And now we're kind of maybe back to that point where you're like, oh, they'll probably lose this game, but then, maybe you get Mateer back for, the week after that or the week after that. I kind of think the Ole Miss game is maybe a realistic expectation for him to get back to, which would be about a full month after the surgery. And so that, to me, that seems kind of like a reasonable timeline. Yeah. I know people have brought up that a few years ago, Jared Goff, when he was still with the Rams, had kind of a similar thumb surgery. Same doctor performed the procedure, and he played in a playoff game like 10 days after that surgery, but he also didn't play very well. So I don't know that they necessarily want to try and get Mateer back as quickly as Goff came back, but at least a little bit of hope that, Mateer can come back maybe sooner than you would think or expect.
Yeah, and I think that it's one of those things where when we know that you can be in the college football playoff with more than 1 loss, and you really want to make sure that you have that guy hanging around in November, in December, and hopefully, a little later than that, do you want to push it, or are you willing to take a loss or risk an opportunity to have a loss? Gerhard, I feel like that's like that right there. If you're looking at that gamble, I mean, I'd rather, say, hey, we'll deal with this right now so we're not dealing with more problems later by trying to rush him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you have to try to play it conservatively, not just with the hand injury, but maybe even game to game. And that's one thing I wanted to ask Holden, because we've talked about Jaden Knott really since the time that he stepped on campus, and he still doesn't have a carry, I don't think. Do you think that they open up this running game a lot more and, like you said, almost just kick the can down the road and win a 10-3 game, a 10-7 game, a 14-10 game if you have to, just to be able to try to stack some wins together, or maybe go into thinking that, hey, when we plug in Mateer again, we might have a loss on the season. How do you expect them to play it as far as just on the field?
Yeah, I mean, if there's ever a time to finally unleash Jaden Knott, I think now's the time. because you got to help Hawkins out. And, it kind of starts with Ott. I mean, you bring him in, you spend however much money. It wasn't cheap to bring him in, I can tell you that. Mm-hmm. And just so far, nothing. He didn't even take the field in that Auburn game. He had been returning kickoffs. He wasn't even doing kickoff return this past week. So I don't really know where we're at with the Jaden Ott situation. Well, you would think that this is the time, if any, to use him, because now you've got a true sophomore quarterback who's played in a few games and a true freshman running back in your backfield. I don't know that that's necessarily a recipe for success in the SEC. I think you need to get Jaden Ott involved more. And I mean, what better time than to really try to get this thing on the road than against Kent State in a couple weeks. And
listen, man, if he's 4 games into this, at some point, is he saying to them, like, this isn't working, and y'all are not going to burn my last year, and I'm going to go find something different that's gonna serve me better? I mean, Holden, you're 4 games into this. Kent State, I would be stunned if they rolled him out for Kent State, right? And that's in a couple of weeks. And then, okay, you see what you're looking like. I mean, maybe he just says, all right, I want to go get an opportunity elsewhere rather than having my last year get burned by you throwing me out for 4 games and then not being able to do anything after that.
Yeah, well, I think it is vital to get him on the field against Kent State because you need all the momentum you can get going into Texas with Michael Hawkins at quarterback. And you need him to feel confident going into that game because if anything from last year is that destroyed his confidence. He had the good first game against Auburn that win, and then they get destroyed by Texas. He has the awful South Carolina game. You need to build up Hawkins' confidence as much as you can, and I think that helps by getting Jaden Ott going and the run game going, just to know that Hawkins doesn't have to do it all himself, which was maybe part of the problem last year is he maybe felt like he had to do too much himself because of all the injuries to the O-line, the wide receivers, and et cetera. I think you have to treat this Kent State game like it's an SEC game, and you gotta do everything to try and get these guys comfortable on the same page because the next game after that is Texas, and Texas is not going to take it easy on you just because you have a backup quarterback playing.
Absolutely. One of the things I found really interesting is the offense is stealing all the headlines, but in my opinion, last week was all about the defense and the defensive line, especially being able to get almost double-digit sacks there on Auburn. Do you expect that kind of production to continue? I know they've been playing really well, but do you expect that kind of production to continue and then be able to get at Arch Manning in the exact same way they got at Jackson Arnold?
Yeah, I think one of the things, too, that's interesting about this defense, they are statistically, I think, in the top 5 in the country right now. But Brian and I were talking about this week. They're the only team in the country that hasn't forced a turnover. OU's like -7 in turnover differential this year because the defense hasn't forced a single turnover, and maybe a safety should count as a turnover. But outside of that safety, they haven't forced any turnovers whatsoever.
I'm telling you right now, Holden, that's a sore subject. Gerhard and I were watching the game at a local place establishment, and we were watching the game, and we want to see our teams do well. We both have some ties to Auburn, and so whatever. I literally said out loud, and I shouldn't have. I was just cussing myself after this. I was like, if this guy takes a sack in the end zone and it ends like this, so help me, and that sure as heck, just out of the sake of like having a little bit of like just too much about yourself, just get rid of it. Just throw the ball into the 5th section, 3rd row. I don't even care, but do not take a sack and a safety there. I was so triggered by that, Holden, and I literally had forgotten about it. And now on this Thursday at 3:34, you're bringing it back up, and it just opened up some fresh wounds. I don't like it.
In his own end zone in the stadium that he used to play.
That's my point. I mean, they were like, you know that those guys were going to be coming with every single ounce they've had since they came out the womb of energy they were going to have to put into that moment to be able to put that dude on the soil, and they sure as heck did. I was so mad.
Yeah, I got some fun things, too, about that. So Jackson Arnold owns the record for most sacks as an OU quarterback and the quarterback most sacked by OU. So he owns the record for both of those. And also on that the safety, our Mason Thomas, the guy that sacked him in the end zone, told the other guys to take the play off. If you look at the other 3 defensive linemen, they didn't rush the quarterback at all.
Are you serious?
Oh, wow.
He looked at him in the huddle, and he goes, hey, guys, I got this. And so if you go back and watch it, it's just our Mason Thomas
It's a one-man rush.
It's
a one-man rush. It's a one-man rush. And he held the ball for 50 seconds.
Yeah.
And he didn't even.
I don't think Auburn's O-line is as bad as everybody wants to say, because, I mean, you give up that many sacks, everybody wants to say something, but Jackson was holding the ball for at least 6 seconds.
Don't make me hit play on Monday's show, because I'm telling you right now, Holden, I was fired. I'm still mad about it, to be honest with you. There were times you can't even do that in 7-on-7, man. Someone needs to be out there with a stopwatch and just say, all right, you're just taking a sack because you've been staring out and trying to make some read. I'm not trying to be ugly. It's ugly. But I'm just telling you, 4+ seconds, you should get sacked. I mean, dude, this is the SEC. I mean, Brent Venables, he knows what he's doing. He's going to dial it all up. And these guys are already fired up to get to the quarterback. I mean, get rid of the ball. Just throw it. I don't even care. Just throw it to anybody. Throw it to Coach Trees.
Yeah, and he's got good wide receivers, so just get him the ball some way.
Play basketball.
And maybe that's on the play calls too. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it all happened right in front of me, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I got to see it right in front of me. So
I that was great.
Got a great shot.
And it came on the heels of you having to pull double duty of what happened to be a historic game for Oklahoma State. You didn't know that until a couple days later, but definitely a historic game for the Cowboys. We're gonna take a really quick break, Holden, and when we come back, discuss this situation with Mike Gundy that has come to a close after more than 2 decades there in Stillwater. We'll have that and much more here in just a couple minutes. Stay with us. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, going to take a step away from the Southeastern Conference to talk about some huge coaching news. One of the all-time well-known, well-respected coaches in college football, Mike Gundy, gets let go at Oklahoma State after falling to Tulsa. And who better to be chatting with this than the guy who was there watching this Tulsa game, Holden Krusemark. Holden, I want to go back to Friday. You're pulling double duty. I know that you went to Oklahoma State, you went to Oklahoma, just very, very busy weekend for you. When you saw the Cowboys lose that game, did any part of you think that what has taken place this week with the firing of Mike Gundy, like that was even on the radar of something that would happen? Was that a reality? What did you think?
Yeah, I expected it.
Really?
But I didn't expect it on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's
that was kind of the that was the thing. Like after you lose to, and we were even talking about it before the game. It was like if they lose to, because this Tulsa team's not very good. That's kind of the thing. Is like if they lose to Tulsa, you kind of have to fire Mike. And maybe it's not immediate or but that's just kind of the nail in the coffin to me, is losing to Tulsa. But the fact that you mentioned is Friday night game, and they wait until Tuesday, that's really what kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Yeah. And
I want to ask you,
like the way
I saw some rumory stuff that says something about they asked maybe to mutually part ways, and Gundy was like, no, you're going to get rid of me. Was that just like a random post that I saw, or was there any legitimacy to that? Have they unveiled any part of that?
Well, so there was a rumor that they had offered for Mike to stay on through the end of the season, and then he'd be able to retire. But then Chad Weiberg, the AD at OSU, said the other day that that wasn't on the table, that they didn't offer him to stay at all. They said, this is it.
Has he spoken to the media? Has he talked at all?
Chad Weiberg talked to the media on Tuesday.
Has Gundy?
Gundy, no. Gundy hasn't said anything since this all went down.
What's his legacy there in Stillwater? Because it feels so up and down, and obviously he came in and almost 18 years ago to the day where he had the I'm a man, I'm 40 comment, where he was just on fire backing up his players. He has a lot of NFL talent that has run through there. They have obviously championships. They beat Texas. They beat Oklahoma in Bedlam. But then also the end was really strange. What do you think overall Cowboy fans will remember about Mike Gundy?
Yeah, I think now that the end is here, I think people will remember it a little more fondly. It had kind of gotten a little bit toxic just in terms of, people. Gundy's a victim of his own success. You build Oklahoma State into this winner, this team that's, contending most years for a Big 12 championship. And then you go on to a 3-9 season the year after being in the Big 12 championship game. And then you start the season off by kind of scraping by against an FCS team. You get blown out at Oregon, and then you lose to Tulsa. Obviously, people weren't happy, and it just, after the Tulsa game, it felt inevitable that a change was going to happen. You just didn't know when it was going to happen. And, mentioning it, going to cover the OU game on Saturday, so I was doing a package for our Saturday show on, OSU. I recorded a backup of talk basically saying that Mike Gundy's been fired, because that's kind of where I expected it to go. And I kind of expected to wake up Saturday saying, to news that Mike Gundy had been fired as Oklahoma State's head coach. So that's kind of where I was thinking. But then once we made it through the weekend, he did his weekly press conference on Monday talking about Baylor, and, answered all these questions and everything like that. Then you kind of think, okay, well, maybe they're going to let him have at least a few more weeks, if not finish out the year and stuff like that. And then probably part ways if, maybe they finish the season 3-9 again, or whatever the case may be. And then, so the last thing I was expecting Tuesday morning was to see that they had fired him, just because. So that was kind of the stunning part of all of this, is just because, they play Baylor this Saturday. They host Baylor on Saturday, and to wait until Tuesday, especially when you played Friday night, you had the extra day. That's where it really didn't make sense.
Did the AD ask that question? Did he answer that question? Was there anything divulged about the timing of that?
He basically just said it was the decision. So one of the interesting things too that you guys may not know about this is Chad Weiberg, the AD, was working without a contract. So he didn't have a contract at OSU. So the big question of all of this, he does now. So the big
he does now, what, since Tuesday or something? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it was announced the same day that Gundy got fired.
Shut
that
up.
I
was literally kidding.
He agreed to a new 4-year contract extension on Tuesday.
Okay, never mind. Question answered. I literally thought you were kidding.
No, and their OSU is an interim president right now, so it was kind of a big question mark.
Did he get a contract?
Okay, if you are going to find Gundy, and so it was like, who would do it if you're going to fire him? I mean, your AD's without a contract right now. Your president is an interim president. So who is in charge of firing Mike Gundy? And then you get the news that Weiberg's agreed to a new 4-year contract, and you're like, okay, maybe that was part of it.
What?
That they were waiting until, if you want me to fire him, give me a contract.
There's no was about it. There is no was about it. Someone said someone's got to get rid of this guy who's been here for 20 years and is well liked. I mean, he's well liked in terms of like coaching profession. People like the guy. I mean, they needed to probably rip the Band-Aid off and be done with it. But yeah, that was easy. They walked in and said, hey man, you want this 4-year deal? Get rid of him by Tuesday. Okay, done. No problem. That's how cutthroat it is in this business. There's no loyalty to nothing, dog. Wow.
Yeah. It's a crazy situation, and I don't really like the way that OSU handled it. Just the fact that you make Mike go out there Monday and talk to the media, do the coaches show and stuff like that, for a guy who's given you 21 great years to just, and he was a player at OSU. He is OSU football since basically the 80s, mid 80s when he got to OSU to play quarterback. Basically ever since then, he's almost been involved with OSU football since then. There's a few years where he was at Maryland and, whatever else. But, this Saturday will be the first time that OSU has played a game without Mike Gundy on the sideline since 2000.
Wow.
And he came back as the offensive coordinator in 2001.
Right.
And then took over when Les Miles left.
I was literally about
LSU.
to say that. Yeah, I was literally about to say that. Their last two coaches, Les Miles and Mike Gundy. That said, where do you think the fan base wants to go as far as a name, or is it maybe somebody that is like an up-and-comer? What do you think the state of this program is to be able to get a guy to replace Mike Gundy? Like you said, Gundy replacing Les Miles and all the success that they've had in the future or in the past.
Yeah, and it's one of the things we've talked about is just that with, or at least, here in the state, is that firing Gundy is you open up a can of worms, because Oklahoma State now kind of becomes a stepping stone job. You're not going to find a guy like Mike Gundy who bleeds Oklahoma State and just this is his dream job and is able to have the success that he has. I think now it kind of becomes a stepping stone job where, you have some success a couple years and all of a sudden the Texas A&M job opens or, LSU or whatever. And now the coach is leaving and you kind of got to start this process all over again, which is kind of the danger of, doing this. But it did feel like it was time to kind of move on. Obviously, it becomes kind of a difficult situation to figure out who is the right person to lead this job, because it seems like the OSU job has kind of fallen in the ranks of college football coaching jobs based off of where,
Yeah, and Holden, I would also add in there.
After the 23 season, it was pretty close up to the top, and now it's just been dropping steadily ever since then.
And take the talent off the board, okay? Take the talent off the board. Take the what the job is off the board. The job still is under Chad Weiber, okay? So everyone who is going to go look at that position is going to know that they just screwed Mike Gundy and said, hey, man, you're out after 21 years on a random Tuesday so he can get a 4-year deal. What type of head coach goes, you know what? Sign me up. I want him to be my boss. I want to go work for that guy. I mean, coaching is a brotherhood. I mean, make no mistake. You keep receipts on things like that. And money certainly is important, but when you're looking to change the game overnight, and bring in a coach and make it all happen, you want to be able to bring in a jam-up coach who can recruit, do all these things. If coaches are in a good spot and they feel like they like their bosses, they like their setup there, no one's going to go want to sign up for Chad Weiber and his Tuesday firing so we can get a 4-year deal on Wednesday. What? I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. And one of the things, too, is there just seems to be a lack of alignment at Oklahoma State from the Board of Regents. I mean, over the offseason, there was the rumor that they were going to fire Gundy then if he didn't, concede to reworking his contract and giving money back and stuff like that. So it's kind of a whole interesting situation where it feels like, from the interim president, the AD that didn't have a contract, the Board of Regents, there just was no alignment. And it's tough to really tell whether what the OSU's true NIL backing is, because Gundy was pretty hesitant for a while to want to go out and spend a bunch of money on NIL to get players and stuff. He said this was the first year that they've ever bought a roster, and maybe not a great purchase based on the results so far. But yeah, so it's interesting to see what the NIL backing is, because that plays a lot into a coach's decision whether you want to go to a place or not, whether they have the resources needed to be able to go out and field a contending team or not. And, if you're going to fire Gundy after all of this, and, I wouldn't imagine the leash is very long for any new coach that they hire. So if you don't have any immediate success, you could be gone in a couple years
before his 4-year deal is up, maybe about 4 years when he needs to get re-signed.
Yeah.
Chad Weaver.
But for OSU fans, the number one candidate for everybody is Zach Robinson. He used to be quarterback at OSU in the early Gundy days. He's the Atlanta Falcons offensive coordinator right now. and he's kind of had a lot of success in the NFL. He got started with the Rams a few years ago and parlayed that into the Falcons of OC job. So people have kind of seen the success he had back, coaching quarterbacks with the Rams and everything else. And so that's the name that everybody wants. However, I don't think it's a very realistic one, just in terms of today's college football landscape. You need a coach to go from day one, and with the NFL landscape, the fact that the Falcons season won't be over until January at the earliest, that doesn't really work in terms of becoming a college football head coach and hitting the ground running in the portal and everything like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's everybody's dream, is that it would be Zach Robinson. I don't think it's realistic though. And I also kind of think that OSU would maybe tend to, find somebody that has some head coaching experience, maybe at a lower level or wherever else. One name that I've kind of liked, in this is just my own opinion, is Billy Napier. I think he's going to get fired at Florida, and I think that would be a good pick to
just as I need to be OSU. Tossing to break. Holden's sitting here saying wild things on this program right now. That's strong.
What do you think? Do you think Billy's going to survive at Florida?
Oh no, absolutely not. I shouldn't think he was going to go there either. But honestly, I mean,
I thought he'd be radioactive after getting canned at Florida.
I think it would be a good situation. I mean, he's proven that he can do it with low budget. At Louisiana and stuff. He's been a good recruiter at Florida. It just hasn't really worked out. I think that could be a good fit. In terms of a guy that maybe wouldn't be looking to just jump up at the next, at the first opportunity that comes that's a little bit bigger, just because he's been at Florida and has potentially been fired from Florida, that he may be willing to stick it out a little bit longer at OSU. I kind of think it would just be a good fit just based off of that.
Holden, all I know is that if and when that day comes, I can promise you who our first phone call to come on this show is going to be. And that will be you. There is no doubt. Holden Krusemark holding it down for us as always there at Oklahoma City. Thanks so much, sir, for your time. I know we went a little long today, but man, great insight not only on Oklahoma, but also there on Oklahoma State as well. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch up with you next week.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you.